God damn, I need IPA.
This is Beering Ain't Easy, your podcast for beer humor, dad humor, and beer tastings from Texas and beyond. So crack one if you got one and turn it up.
Welcome to Beering Ain't Easy, Season 2, Episode 31, with Ryan. I know you probably heard there's a lot of tech companies doing mass layoffs, and the Beering Ain't Easy podcast is not immune to this downsizing. So we're just going to roll with me for a while. So thank you guys for tuning in.
I feel like that's your worst nightmare, Ryan, to like have to run a single man podcast.
No, for sure. I couldn't even make it through that intro, and I was like, I don't even know where to go from here. Like, this is it.
Awkward. Welcome back, y'all. We have got an episode today, and I got really excited after Ryan pulled together kind of a somewhat vertical, somewhat horizontal experiment we did with Eureka Heights, Nuke the Whales a few episodes back, and so we wanted to come back and do another one with a similar theme. Ryan, you want to give the listeners a little taste of what we're doing today?
Yeah, we didn't manage 4 beers like we did with the Nuke the Whales episode, but we did manage some 11 Below Negative Space from this current year, and also one from last year. So we're going to do a little side-by-side of last year to this year, see how it ages. How's that sound to you?
That sounds great, man. After I learned that 1-year-old stouts are where it's at, I'm ready to do it every week. I want to get into these beers, but first I got to throw out a dad story just to kick us off today. I mean, we haven't done one in a little while, so I've got my youngest daughter. It's almost 2 years old. I think I've kind of told you this, Ryan, but the listeners need to hear. So she's happy-go-lucky, smiling, happy like most of the time, except there's like certain things that she gets really like intense about. Her face changes and she just looks at you like, are you fucking not going to get this for me? Well, one of the things that she's chosen to demand into the house is she's still been drinking milk out of like a milk bottle, even though she's almost 2. We've been trying to break that habit. But not only does she want to drink it in the milk bottle, but after she saw Meredith and I using them, she now demands a koozie to be placed on her milk bottle. And she's walking around the house drinking milk out of a koozie like an alcoholic.
I love it. Hey, at least it's milk instead of a milk stout.
Yeah, well, she'll learn one day.
Or in the case of Negative Space, an extra fancy milk stout.
Oh, tell us about this Negative Space, Ryan.
So yeah, Negative Space is 11 Below's seasonal release. They always release it on the Saturday closest to 11/11. It's really good. It's my dad's favorite stout. So whenever I go to Oklahoma, I try to get some when it's around like Christmas time. I try to bring some up for him. Actually, here's a fun story. We're up. We always go up to Oklahoma in the middle of December and do an early Christmas, but it's also the anniversary of the brewery. But this time I brought Negative Space and French Press and the bourbon barrel aged French Press, and I brought the patented Beering Ain't Easy side-by-side tasting experiment, brought it out in the wild, and we tried all of them side by side, and had we split it 5 ways, and we did a 5-way tasting, and we all decided what our favorites were. And I'm a French press truther, and that was my winner. And my dad, he stood firm with the Negative Space. He singled it out and was like, yeah, no, I like this one. So
nice.
But yeah, anyway, but yeah, the Negative Space, it's Imperial Chocolate Milk Stout, and they add cocoa nibs, cinnamon, and ancho chilies. So it gives it a little bit of like, it's hard to describe it without saying it's spicy, because it's not spicy. If you can imagine the flavor of cinnamon, that kind of like weird, like tinge, it's kind of like that.
I don't know, Ryan.
Do you have any better descriptors?
So I broke a beer and ain't easy rule. So hopefully Ryan like cracks open a beer on the podcast, but I've actually been sipping mine already. And I was gonna throw a little bit of a disagreement on you with the chilies. Like, it's not a spicy beer, but like I'm about a third of the way into the 2022 stout, and I can feel a little bit of the heat building a little bit. So it's not without some tiny bits of heat there.
I guess I better catch up then.
But I do definitely get the cinnamon there. And I guess I know I've had this beer before, but I guess after having Nuke the Whales, that was like an imperial bourbon barrel aged version. So I was expecting something big and bold like this, but this is a thinner standard milk stout where I have that, like you get the chocolate silkiness that you get with milk stouts, but definitely that cinnamon and then that kind of building ancho chili. So it's a very unique milk stout. I like it a lot. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Brash Milk the Venom too.
Ooh, that's kind of high praise. Is there such a thing as a Texas stout? We might need to coin this, because this is a stout, but yeah, like kind of like what you were saying. It's got some extra flavors, but it's not like a heavy drinking stout. So it's something that, like, the Texas winters that's like 60 degrees, you can still drink it and enjoy it.
I like it. And if you throw chilies in it, that makes it more likely to be a Texas stout too.
I have to take this opportunity to bring up my one true love, Eureka Heights. They're bringing back Muy Caliente, which is one of their flagship beers, which is their spiced stout. Like, I think it's cayenne, and that was like on their permanent rotation when they opened with like 4 beers, and then they dropped it off. But they bring it back occasionally, and they just brought it back recently. So I'm going to need to come up with an excuse to go down there. Or that will be my excuse, I suppose. Go down there and try that out.
Nice. I really wanted to do, how we've done the episodes where we pick an ingredient and we get all the beers with the same ingredient in it. I've really wanted to do that with chilies, because you could do it with all different types of stouts. But the problem is like everybody uses something a little bit different. It's not all ancho chilies or anything. So I don't know. It'd be maybe a little tougher.
I know one beer in particular that aggressively puts peppers in their beers, and you would appreciate the name of it. Do you know what I'm getting at?
I don't think I do. Do tell.
It's a beer called Ghostface Killah, and they use ghost peppers.
Oh, shit. That doesn't sound enjoyable.
Dude, it's not. Like, in our fantasy football draft in one of my leagues, if you pick a player that's already been drafted, well, when we used to do live drafts, if you pick a player that had already been drafted, you have to spin this wheel, which was like a lazy Susan that we decorated with a bunch of punishments. And one of them was you had to take a shot of Ghostface Killah, and just a shot, like, lit your mouth on fire. It was crazy.
That's not the experience I'm looking for when I'm drinking a beer.
No, definitely not. I guess since I brought up the release date of this Negative Space, I should talk about the stuff they do. They do a bunch of taproom releases on that weekend, like really good stuff, like Mexican hot chocolate variant. They'll do like a German chocolate cake where they'll like literally stuff a whole German chocolate cake in a cask with it. And I'm trying to think of some. They do like a coconut one. They do a Java space. They do a positive space, which is like a double negative. So it's a double, like they double all the ingredients for it. They did a peanut butter cup cask.
Ooh.
So it's worth making the trip to 11 Below for Negative Space release date. If you like stouts, like, it's awesome. It's really fun.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to convince me. We've cataloged this well on the podcast that 11 Below has like smoked most of the competition when we've done blind tastings. And so they make really high quality beers. And so another one of their stouts that I'm a big fan of is Big Mistake. If you had the one from this year?
I have not. No.
I think I've got us lined up for a Houston barrel-aged stout comparison at some point. We'll have to hit that before stout season runs out. It's already starting to warm up. But if the listeners remember, we are a part of a podcast network, Cross the Streams Media. And so our buddies at Hot Tub Beers actually met with the 11 Below owners, and they did a multi-year vertical of Big Mistake. So you got to check that one out. It was pretty interesting to hear the slight variations between batches each year. So I'm interested to see if that translates over to Negative Space. I'm looking at this can. It seems like there's a lot going on here. What's the theme on this can art?
Well, I will read one section of text on the can towards the back that says, Prepare for Ludicrous speed.
Ooh.
Does that ring any bells for you?
Yes, it does. I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan.
Yeah, it's got the camper spaceship flying across the front of it.
May the Schwartz be with you.
Yeah. Yeah, we got Spaceballs references. If the listeners haven't picked up on that, it's Spaceballs. But
I am glad you brought up Spaceballs and Mel Brooks, because have you ever watched the movie The History of the World Part 1?
Don't get mad at me. No. I've seen like the first like 15 minutes of it and then had to turn it off. This was like way back in the day, and had to turn it off, and then never was able to go back to it and watch it.
Okay. You have a homework assignment. You have to watch History of the World Part 1, because Mel Brooks is still alive, and he has just created a multi-episode History of the World Part 2 that's coming out on Hulu that I am ecstatic to watch, because they're freaking hilarious. So Spaceballs, definitely Mel Brooks, my favorite movie he's ever done, but I've watched a lot of his stuff, and Robin Hood Men in Tights, Blazing Saddles, it's all good.
I'll say Blazing Saddles was like mind-blowing to me. I was in a very formative stage of like comedy movies. Like seriously, I was like 13 or 14 when I saw Blazing Saddles for the first time, and I was just like, could not believe like how funny and like edgy it was. I was just like, I can't believe they can like say these jokes. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah. some of the shit on there would be canceled right now. Let's be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's had like the slapstick type of humor. Like there's not been a lot of people that have been able to recreate the exact same type of humor since his movies.
The kind of meta comedy of them spilling out of the set onto like other movie sets. It was just like, how can you derail a movie like this and still have it be like good?
I love them.
Yeah. So have you tried the 2021 version yet?
No, I think it's time.
What would your expectations be for trying a year-old version of this?
I was trying to figure out between the cinnamon and the chili, would they become more pronounced, or if they would start to fade? That's like the real question for me that I want to answer.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking going into this. Was like, I was like, I think the cinnamon would like fade probably, and I wasn't sure about the chili, so I was like, any chili heat would probably stick around. But besides that, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't expect to taste any age on it per se, but I actually do taste some age on it. What do you think?
That was actually the first thought that I had. You had this whole thing last time about, do you taste the age in beer? And I started tasting it. But it is interesting. And both the chili and the cinnamon have kind of faded on it after a year.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't touch on that part of it. Yeah, both for me. Yeah, the chili and the cinnamon both kind of faded. Now that I had another sip, I don't know if they faded or if they're getting masked by the aged flavor. I think it's only fair if I just keep trying it, see if I can pick it out.
So Ryan, like, I never fully was able to pinpoint what aged flavor was until you pointed it out to me when we were doing different tastings. And ever since then, I can taste it in any beer that has the quote unquote aged flavor. And you've tainted me. So now anytime I have an older beer, I'm like, oh shit, that's that aged flavor that Ryan told me about. So thanks a lot, buddy.
Is that aged flavor the new, it's got that IPA, or what beer was that?
It's got that Oktoberfest flavor.
Yeah. No, but really, I seriously like have no idea how to describe the aged beer flavor outside of that aged beer flavor. Like, seriously, I have no idea what descriptors to use for it.
But I think when you nailed it down for me is when you pulled out all those St. Arnold beers that were really all the Divine Reserve beers, and we were drinking one that was like a 2013 or a 2014, and those are like so aged to the point you're like, am I enjoying this anymore, or do I really need to pour it down the drain? And so, like, obviously, if you get a lot more, a lot closer to current, you don't have it, but you still have the small inkling of aged flavor. So I can pinpoint it, laser accuracy now.
I'll say drinking like a 7-year-old beer will sear that flavor into your memory.
No doubt.
Which, speaking of beers that are too old, we did the 2010 podcast last episode. And one of the ones when I first started thinking about 2010 beers, one of the first ones that came to mind was Racer 5, because that was my first IPA love. That was like the first IPA that I was like all about. My buddy happened to have some from when he moved into his house, and it happened to be 2 years old. And it wasn't 2 years old. It was like a year and a half old. But he brought one over to me right after that episode. And I took one sip of it and had to do a drain pour, and then had to like brush my teeth because it left such a bad aftertaste in my mouth.
Some beers are not meant to be aged, man.
Yeah. IPAs are one of those, which maybe we should do an experiment with soon.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. So what do you think we come back while we're sipping these side by side? We come back and give our final thoughts on these beers, but maybe in the middle here, we touch on something that we have not touched on for quite a while on the podcast, and the listeners may be wondering what the hell happened to us on our quests. And of course, Ryan, we're talking about the H-Town Brewery Challenge. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's not actually true. Ryan has maintained the spreadsheet quite magnificently. We just realized that probably recapping every single brewery 50 miles outside of Houston on the podcast is probably not the most exciting thing to talk about. But as a reminder, if you go to our website, you can find the page where we have all of our reviews built into there. And we'll be coming back after it's all over to tell you all of our favorites in the city. But we put in work, man. I was looking at the numbers. The last time we talked about this was like late August. And if you look at the amount of breweries we hit between then and now, it's a lot. So you want to update the listeners on where we are on the total count?
Yes, we were tallying it up and realized that we missed adding a brewery that we added at the last minute. But we have visited 49 of 71, which I've taken math classes in my day. That's 69%. So we're doing a pretty nice job.
I'm impressed that you were able to give that statistic without giggling.
I know. I laugh so much when I'm talking, and I actually kept a straight face on that one.
Yeah, we know you were laughing on the inside. I feel like it's a little, this is like a moving target. And we started trying to hit all these breweries. It's been over a year now. So I think originally we thought we could hit it in a year, but it's been challenging because we've had breweries closing down. We have had breweries opening up. It's kind of fun because it will keep the challenge going on forever. But I think we've hit all the, I'll say, easy ones inside the city. And so now we're having to really voyage into all the surrounding areas of Houston. And so I was kind of scanning our list, and not only did we hit ones inside the city, but we hit one in Humble, hit one down, like a couple down in Dickinson, Webster area, Galveston, Pearland. I mean, we're starting to spread out, and I think what we have left is even further out, kind of the very edges of that 50 mile.
Yeah, it's like the Conroe ones, Lake Houston Brewing. Yeah, it's like the ones that are like very much out of the way.
Do you have any predictions, Ryan? One, are we actually going to finish the H-Town Brewery Challenge? And what's your excuse for not being able to get them all done in a year?
I think the excuse is pretty damn easy. We have full-time jobs, and I have one kid, and you have 3. That makes things a little difficult.
I gotta say too, it's like hard. It's hard to like build yourself up because you like when you've gone to 49 different breweries, you've found some that are just like fantastic. And then it's like you either go to a brewery you've never been to before, which is a 50-50 chance you're going to like it, or you go to the one that's a lot closer that you know is a slam dunk. It's like, it's hard to say, hey, let's go drive up way the hell like an hour away from my house and maybe or maybe not get better beer. So it's tough because I know I've double dipped on a few of these breweries in that span.
Oh yeah, so that's the biggest I think hurdle is yeah, it's like we have motivation to go try these random places, but our wives don't. So it's like if we're gonna go somewhere, it's like it's a hard sell to be like, oh hey Allison, can we drive 50 minutes to go try this new place? It looks like it could be okay for our toddler on the Google pictures. Or it could be like, oh yeah, there's this other brewery that we know is great for kids 20 minutes away. It's a hard sell.
Yeah. Yeah, the one that's got the playground built in and all the amenities for kids. And we're like, hey, we want to go to this place that's in a warehouse that, we can bring the kids tablets.
Yeah. I heard this place doesn't have good beer, but like, we got to do it for the podcast. And she's like, yeah, no, that's not happening.
Those are the hardest ones. The ones where you go in and you're like, low expectations. But
yeah. And that's the other thing is like, if we're going to go, like, say we're going to drive to Conroe and try to knock out, like, if I'm going to go all the way to Conroe, I want to try to knock out like 3 breweries. But yeah, my wife's not going to want to go have one beer and jump around. She's going to want to like settle down and like chill for a while and relax. So that's the other like kind of hard part about it.
I will say though, like one of the things that's been great about going to so many breweries, and I like looking at the list of the ones we haven't talked about, is that I love it. The fact that I still keep finding places that I kind of go in with not low expectations, but I go in kind of, indifferent, and I come out like being a huge fan. And so the one that I'm thinking about that I had that experience with was when I went to Dickinson and I went to Galveston Bay Brewing. I've had a few of their beers that I got from Total Wine and thought they were pretty good. But when I got there, it's like in this old like airplane hangar, like the staff there was like so friendly. There was just like people, a bunch of locals in there that you could tell they came there like every day. Cause I went there by myself. So I was like, I literally had a conversation with a local for like 35 minutes. It was pretty wild, but they had all the beer styles on the menu that you have trouble finding in other parts of the city or in any other breweries, like Scottish ales and like ESBs, and just I was a huge fan. So I know they're moving to a lot bigger location, and I want to start following them more because I had a great time out there. Any of the breweries that you've been to since August that just had an experience that you're like, you know what, this is where it's at?
So my neighbor and I went and I was like, oh, I got to knock off Whole Foods Brewing at some point. So I was like, I was going to go by myself, and I just texted him. I was like, hey man, I'm going to go down here. Do you want to go? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. So I picked him up and we went down there, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go, drink the Amazon beer. And I was like, this is going to be like, whatever. So you get there, you have to park in a parking garage below. The elevator opens up into the brewery. Like you go in, and it's like I thought it was going to be like a kiosk inside the grocery store, but it's actually like this whole side thing, and it's like legit looks like like a nice bar. And but there's like no bathroom in there. You have to take that elevator up to the floor above to get to the bathroom. Like there's so much about it that like should be like kind of a pain in the ass and like really difficult, but for some reason I just like loved how quirky it was. I had like the greatest experience ever. I just thought it was like amazing.
Nice. Is that like the Whole Foods Brewery? Is that unique to Houston, or do they actually have multiple locations in other places?
I don't know of any other ones.
Okay.
I think that's the only one.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it either. Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be like a couple of just like simple beers and then like a whole bunch of guest taps. And they did have a bunch of guest taps, but they had tons of their own stuff and like tons of like really aggressive hazies with different like hop variants that were like obviously not as good as like Spindle Tap, but they were like really big, bold hazies like that. Like they weren't like playing it safe. They were like doing some cool stuff. So yeah, I thought it was cool. So highly recommend it. But like the worst brewery I've like ever been to for kids.
Sometimes it's like that.
Yeah. So I figured out the perfect arrangement to make this work.
It's funny that you mentioned like the whole thing about trying to convince your family to go. I feel like that's the only way I'm making progress on the challenge now is I'm like taking off a half day on a Friday from work and just going and knocking out a couple by myself. And I'm not like one of those people that's usually like making new friends at a brewery when I'm there by myself. I'm kind of like just drinking. And I'm like, wish I had someone to talk to. And then that's why it was so weird that me and this gentleman had a long conversation at Galveston Bay. So it's tough. It's tough to make it to the full 70. And just to wrap up a couple of the other ones, I will shout out. The last thing I'll say is that I showed up to Backfish, which Backfish is one of the two closest breweries to my house. So, but I'll be honest, like when Valencin's came along, like we just quit going to Backfish because like I love Valencin so much. And if I'm going to go to a local joint, it's what we gravitated toward. But like Backfish still made some good beers and I wanted to go back and check it out. And so I went over there and I was like, pretty happy with my beers. And then I left and then like literally like 4 days later, they posted on social media that they're closing down for good. And I was like, damn, they have been around for a long time trying to fight the good fight in Pearland against all our terrible, antiquated, old laws about selling alcohol. And it was really kind of a punch in the gut that they're going down to. So as Ryan mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, economy's tough, man. And we've had some breweries not making it. So, it could happen that I just don't show up one day to this podcast. So, but rest in peace, Backfish. Pouring one out for you.
We're gonna add a column to the spreadsheet about places that Drew has visited that have ended up shutting down. We're just gonna make sure that there's not any kind of correlation here. We may have to call off the H-Town Brewery Challenge if we notice any disturbing trends.
We noticed that the clientele is sketchy. So, not to beat a dead horse here, but season 1 of the Beering Ain't Easy podcast, we made it exactly 40 episodes. And then we pulled the plug. We brought Ryan on full time and we made the H-Town Brewery Challenge kind of the focal point of the season. So we're 31 episodes in and I refuse to end season 2 until we've hit every brewery in Houston. So Ryan, the big prediction is here. In terms of Beering Ain't Easy episodes, which is a moving target because we don't always hit every 2 weeks, what episode number is it going to be at the point in which we get all the breweries that are open at that point in time? Because I know we'll fall behind once something new pops up.
So the engineer in me is coming out. If we hit 49 breweries in 31 episodes, to end up getting all the way to 71 at that clip, it'll take 45, almost exactly 45 episodes. So do you think we can close this out by episode 45?
I'm not that optimistic, Ryan. It's getting harder and harder towards the tail end of the list. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go with a round number. I'm going to go with 50. I think by episode
like we
50.
Talked about, we got the low hanging fruit. Now it's the hard ones. That's when we're really getting tested.
I think we have to set an ultimatum that within 50 episodes, we have to close the season out and may or may not come back forever.
So, yeah, I was going to say, so the subscribers, when we go on like a 6-week hiatus to try to
make up
hit every brewery before we record again, don't unsubscribe. Like, stick around, please. We'll be back.
See, listeners, this is the reason why we haven't been able to hit 2 weeks on a podcast. It has nothing to do with our busy lives and being able to plan around it. It's because we're trying to catch up.
So I have a random topic that I just felt compelled to tell you about that has nothing to do with anything we've been talking about tonight.
Bring it.
So while we were waiting to record, I was watching some college basketball. So I was watching Oklahoma State play Ole Miss, and one of the Ole Miss players fouled out, and the Oklahoma State fans did something that I think like every fan base in college basketball does, is when their players walking back to the bench, they're like, left, right, and then like they do the sit down when he's down. But I always appreciated when players would stand by their seat on the bench and then wait until the home team player was about to shoot their free throw and then sit down, and then fans would inevitably be dumb enough to still yell sit down right when the player is trying to shoot the free throw. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciate when players do that. Like, that's such like a petty but like funny thing to do.
Where I thought you were going with that is like, have you ever seen when the player does the thing where they like act like they're going to sit down, but then they don't? They kind of do like the fake butt sit, and then just to get the crowd to yell it.
I mean, that's great too. Or like I've seen players like just like walk in a circle by their seat to keep the players or the fans saying left, right, like as long as they can to see how long they'll go. Like there's a lot of great ways that like you just found out it's a hyper competitive environment and you're probably like furious, but it's still funny that they're willing to like mess with the opposing team's fans that way. Like I love it. Props to those players.
I love college basketball. It's the greatest. All right. I think we need to circle back to these two beers. So we've had some time to compare the two. I think I've made it halfway through both of them. Do you have any big revelations or thoughts on your preference between the two?
I mean, it's damn good.
Yeah.
I feel like we say that about like almost every beer that we drink on this podcast, but like it's true. This is just fun. This is me getting on my high horse about beer again, which I seem to be doing more and more of lately, but we just get to drink some damn good beers, and it makes me so happy, Drew.
This is what keeps me going, is seeing the joy in Ryan's eyes.
We kind of hinted about it earlier, but yeah, the fact that like the ancho chili and the cinnamon kind of faded a little bit on the aged one, and then like you got some of that aged flavor in. I feel like it kind of lost some of its depth, like, and you just kind of get that aged flavor. So it's still got a really good, like silky, like creamy mouthfeel. So like that part of it's still really good. But yeah, I just feel like there's so much depth with those different flavors on the new one. I actually prefer the new one. What do you think, Drew?
I think you're spot on. When we did the Eureka Heights Nuke to Wales, the aged version was just magnificent. That bourbon barrel aged was just beautiful. And so much so that I was like ready to age every single one that I got. This is not the case. I feel like what makes this Negative Space such a good stout is the pop of the chilies and the pop of that cinnamon. Like it just makes it like a very complex beer, and I like it so much, this new 2022 version. And I feel like you lose what makes it great by letting it wait a year. So my recommendation would be don't age this stout. Drink it when you get it.
Well said, sir.
But definitely buy the stout when it comes out.
Just check for the Saturday closest to 11/11 on your calendar. Mark it down.
That Java Space variant is good too. That's the one that you can find distributed. All the other ones, I don't think I've had anything else other than the Java Space, but it's definitely worthwhile too.
Yeah, for sure. I actually have one of those left over in my fridge that I haven't drank yet, which I will be seeing you tomorrow, sir. I can bring it if you would like.
Hold up, Ryan. If you've got that in your fridge, why don't I just make a cheesy sound effect? We'll go into the future and we'll drink this beer together.
Let's do it.
So we're back at Ryan's house. We're enjoying Java Space, the variant of Negative Space that's infused with coffee. Ryan, what do you think? How does this stack up versus the OG?
Honestly, I was hoping for like a little bit more coffee forward. Like when I see a coffee stout, like that's really what I want. Is I want that like roastiness, that kind of like not fully like acidic, but that like kind of sharper bitterness that comes with the roastiness. And this one, I mean, you can definitely taste the coffee, but it's like I feel like it's relatively subtle considering they just put a huge cup of coffee on the can. What do you think?
I agree that I expected a lot more coffee. It tastes a lot more like original Negative Space, which is not a bad thing at all. I do like the finish a little better. It's a little less thin. It's a little fuller, a little roastier at the end. I don't know. I try to decide if I like it better than the original or not, but they're so similar that it's kind of right up neck and neck.
Yeah, I think what kind of makes Negative Space kind of so unique and special is like that cinnamon kind of lingering on the end, and I feel like the coffee getting added to it kind of mutes that down, and so you like almost don't even notice it anymore, and it kind of makes it more of like a generic coffee stout. So I think I personally prefer the regular Negative Space a little bit better.
You may be onto something. I mean, we keep circling back to the same point, is that you have a beer that's super unique and it pops a whole lot. And anything that you do to mess with that, it's just taking it in a different direction. So I think there you have it, folks.
Yeah. I mean, the chilies, the cinnamon, like those are the stars. So let's keep those right front and center.
Vertical, horizontal, every each way on the Beer Ain't Easy podcast.
You never know which direction we're going to get.
Well, Ryan, any final thoughts on the Negative Space beers before we close our episode out?
This year-old Negative Space wasn't as good, but I think the reasons that we talked about were spot on. Just like those distinct flavors kind of fizzled a little bit. But I did want to ask you, different breweries, obviously they do their own packaging. Are there breweries that you trust more to age beers than others? You know what I mean? Like if they don't do a great job of purging air, it's not going to age as well, right? So like, do you think there's some breweries that probably do a better job than others, and that so that like you're kind of taking more of a gamble with some places?
I don't doubt that is absolutely true. I just don't. I would lean towards those breweries that already make some of the top quality products, like a St. Arnold type of company. I just have high confidence that they're probably going to package very consistently and well. So I would think that aging one of their beers would be a safe bet, but it's tough with like the small local breweries with cans that sometimes when they get a little older, you can kind of feel some give in the cans and things like that. I start questioning, are they going to be good more than 6 months out?
Yeah, I'm sure a place like St. Arnold's, they're so established. I'm sure they have like set processes and quality controls that like you really don't have to worry about it at all.
And they use bottles too, so
it's probably pretty correlated with how big and established your brewery is with how like consistent your packaging becomes.
Just to bring it back to this episode, I don't want the listeners to go off on a rabbit trail thinking that would put 11 Below in that category, because they're aged. Big Mistakes beers age really well. So my revelation for this episode is that not every beer style is meant to be aged. And I'm thinking that this type of a milk stout here, where there's a focus on these, the chili and other flavors, it's not one that you want to age. And I'd be interested to hear the brewers if this is one that they wouldn't recommend aging as well.
Yeah, that would be interesting to hear. And yeah, I guess an addendum, I said like the size and the establishment of a brewery. But I guess there is the other part is the amount of distribution is also a factor. Like some place like 11 Below like distributes like crazy, a ton all over the place. So they get, I imagine, really, really good at packaging. So it's probably more the places that don't package as much that have those missteps.
So Ryan, while you were rambling on about trying not to offend Negative Space and their aging process, I was searching on Reddit on what beers you should age and what you should not. And it was kind of interesting, the comments that I saw in there, and this is obviously really well thought out research since I'm doing it right in front of me. It's basically saying you want to age the stouts. They're very high alcohol content and are kind of harsh. And your whole purpose of aging is to remove that harshness and maybe mellow out some of that heavy alcohol content. And so some stouts I read on there that just said, don't do it. Don't mess with it if it doesn't hit those triggers. So what are your thoughts on that? Does that stack up with your observations with this one?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, kind of what we've already talked about and hinted at is the cinnamon and the chilies. And when you age it and those drop out, what are you left with?
You're left with nothing but a bag of aged flavor, Ryan.
Just revelatory analysis.
I think we use
the Beer Ain't Easy podcast.
I think we use the term revelation or revelatory or whatever at least 6 times in that segment. It's pretty good.
And you just got to say it once and it sounds smart. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna beat this Dead horse.
We've beat a couple dead horses today. And so at this point, I'd like to thank the listeners. Thanks for sticking with us. We love having y'all. Love the comments we get on social media. We love the fact that Ryan's boss came back and told Ryan it was okay that he was using company property to record last time. It's, we love everyone that listens to Beer and Ain't Easy podcasts, and we'll keep bringing you the content till we hit every brewery in the Houston area. So in summary today, Ryan, I still love Negative Space, and I recommend this beer highly to anyone who can get their hands on it. What would you like to say to finally close this out today?
I don't think it's a coincidence that a brewery named 11 Below came out with a better version of the same beer in the year 2022, because it's divisible. If you divide 22 by 2, you get 11. I smell a conspiracy in the works. We need to dig deeper on this, Drew.
Whoa. We'll see y'all next time.
That was the most sarcastic quote I've ever heard in my life.
This has been a Beering Ain't Easy production out of Houston, Texas. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook, or at our website at crossthestreamsmedia.com, where you can find our podcast and all the other great sister podcasts on our network.
This has been a Cross the Streams Media Podcast.
Well, that's another great 20 seconds of content we recorded posthumously.
That's how I do my best work, Drew. 20 seconds at a time.